Do a good job at it.
What?
Keeping me in line.
Great. Hey, great. We'll be here next Sunday, but not the last Sunday. Okay, gotcha.
Okay, good morning. Good morning. Jake, is your mom?
I don't think so.
I got something for her. You gotta remember, I just saw you two.
She will be here.
All right, it's in the trunk. Happy Mother's Day. So, as Arvilla just reminded me, we're here next week, and then on I think it's the 26th, the Sunday before Memorial Day, I'm on call at the hospital, so we won't have class here. Everybody goes down to the auditorium. I'm not sure what they're talking about down there, but I'm sure it's good. Okay, last couple of weeks we've been talking about, we've been in the Sermon on the Mount, and we talked about eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, and what all that means. Today we're going to stay in the Sermon on the Mount, and we're going to finish up next week with the same subject, and that'll be the class. And today we're going to talk about anger, which goes real well with the sin and temptation class, which is what this is. So we're going to read the passage that we're going to look at, and then I'm going to read you a story from a commentary I found. This was a couple of months ago, and I apologize. I don't remember who the author is. I just printed it out. And then I'll tell you my own story, which illustrates pretty well my own temptation and maybe the sin. I don't know. But first, let's go ahead and read what we're going to talk about. And it's found in Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 20. Oh, let's just go 26, 21 through 26. Matthew 5, 21 through 26. And I'll go ahead and read it. And you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. This is from the NIV. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to his brother, Raka, is answerable to the Sanhedrin. But anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. If that's straight out of the Greek, it is the fire of Gehenna, which is important because that's going to be a lot of what next week is about. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to your brother. Then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still with him on the way, or he may hand you over to the judge. And the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. I tell you the truth, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. Okay. Well, first of all,
Where's the Sanhedrin?
where's the Sanhedrin?
Yeah, I gotta go see them. That's what it said. It told me if you call somebody Raka, which is idiot.
Raka? Oh, yeah. We'll get into all that. Yeah,
Well, hey, just trying to do what God told me to do.
that's right. The body, okay? The Sermon on the Mount, there's an introduction, there's a body, and there's a conclusion. Like just
Like
about
all
everything.
good essays should be.
Yeah. And in the body, it has these words that Jesus, you have heard that it was said, but I tell you. Okay? Now, we already know that Jesus boldly claimed he didn't come to discard the Torah and the prophets, right? But he came to what? Fulfill them. Fill them full. Okay? And we know that his whole life fills full of the story of the Torah and the rest of the Bible. He went on, he lives a life of justice and right relationships, dies an atoning sacrifice for us, and his resurrection gives us hope for a redeemed world. We know that. So, but that's the story being filmed, right? Story of the Bible. But what about the commands and the laws that God gave to the ancient Israelites? Like, do not worship other gods, do not covet, do not murder. A lot of people in Jesus' day wanted to know, what do you think about these laws? You know, you came to fulfill them. What do your followers think about these laws? How did they adhere to them? And do you adhere to them appropriately? These are all questions toward him, right? So what we're going to learn is that God's wisdom can be found in every law of the Torah, and that Jesus, in this body of the Sermon on the Mount, is going to show you how to find that wisdom. So he says, you have heard that it was said, and then he's going to give a quote, do not murder, do not covet, etc., that his audience will be very familiar with back in the day. And then he says, but, or and, I say to you. So the question then is, what is the relationship between what Jesus says and the quote? In other words, here comes a quote, but I say to you. Like, you have heard that it was said, don't murder. But I say to you, don't be angry. What's the relationship here? So one way that people have understood this relationship is that Jesus offers a counter teaching. Okay? And it's meant to be seen as a contrast. Okay? The Torah said, don't murder, but I say, don't be angry. Contrast meaning he is setting himself up as the new source of authority. Torah is important, but what is really important is what I have to say. Okay? And now this has been an important strand in Christian history and tradition. And even though he just said, I didn't come to discard the Torah, I came to fill it full, right? And but throughout the years, church history and tradition, and still today in some denominations, etc., they think that he's starting a new movement, a new religious movement, and based on his teachings, not on the Torah. And the fancy word for that is antithesis view, contrast. Torah says this, but I say this. All right? Okay, that's one way to interpret it. Yes, ma'am.
I hate to disagree with Bible scholars,
Uh-huh.
but to me, it's not a contrast. It's an extension
Watch
of what
this.
he said before.
You're going to agree with some scholars.
Jesus isn't saying don't go murder, or it's okay to murder someone as long as you don't get angry. You know, if you're just not angry, it's okay to go murder. No, he's saying the Bible or the Torah says don't murder, and I'm telling you to go a step beyond.
There you go.
Because murder is a physical thing.
Well,
It's me going to do it. Christ came to change our hearts.
exactly.
He told them in the Old Testament, God told them, you worship me because your hearts are far from me.
Well,
And that's what Christ came to do. He came to change our hearts. But I don't think he's saying that it's okay to murder.
Yeah.
It's okay to, commit adultery as long as you're not lusting after that person,
yeah, and if you look in commentaries today, this view is still all over.
I look at it as kind of like nipping it in the bud. I mean, if you get angry, you might murder. if you don't get angry, you're not gonna murder. You're not gonna commit adultery if you're not lusting. So, don't go there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. That was great. That's one view. But you could interpret it totally opposite. Okay? You can interpret what he says as doing the exact opposite. Jesus actually agrees with the command. And then he's going to go on and apply it in very practical ways. You have heard, don't murder. That's exactly right. So I say to you, don't be angry. Okay, there's a difference there. Those are the extremes. Okay? Now, what Jesus said he was going to do was fulfill the Torah. And if you have something that is fulfilled, then you have something that it's real, and it's also pointing to some greater full reality. You following me? It's incomplete and needs to be filled in some way, right? That makes sense? So he views the commands as something that is pointing to a way of life that is more bigger, more expansive, deeper than just the words themselves. Okay, you see the difference between those three? And that's kind of the way that we're going to go, the last one. All right, now, like I said, I printed this out a couple of months ago, and I don't remember, but it's in a commentary on Matthew, who the scholar was, the author. And here's their story, and it's kind of in contrast to mine, it brings a lot more people in, so it's more community-based. It happened again the other day. It is sadly common. A leading politician makes a gesture of contempt towards the opposition, and someone on the other side reacts angrily. Soon, dozens of people are on their feet shouting. Insults fly to and fro, and out on the streets, supporters of the rival parties jeer at each other, then begin to jostle and threaten. Fists fly, knives come out. By the time the police arrive, 2 people have been killed. Of course, the other side now vows revenge. The next day, they're back in force and attack 2 innocent people just passing by. Their families, in turn, swear to get even. Is this what human life was meant to be like? Jesus knew this world too. People of his day who wrote about the world describe incidents just like this. Romans insult the Jews. Samaritans attack the Jews. The Jews fight back, and different Jewish parties insult and attack each other. And the fault lines are going to run through villages, they're going to run through families, and sometimes even through households. And when people are insecure, and during a military occupation, both the occupiers and the occupied are insecure people, they become very jumpy, react badly to anything that even looks like aggression. Often the only thing that prevents all-out war is exhaustion, poverty. And part of the tragedy of all this is that people take their public anger back home. And you've seen this scenario. The executive whose boss shouts at him goes back to his office and he shouts at the secretary. The secretary goes home, shouts at her kids. Kids go over and kick the cat.
What's the dog?
Yeah, dog. No, we don't kick dogs, we kick cats. I don't kick cats. If part of human maturity is learning how to recognize your anger and deal with it, before it gets out of control, we have to conclude that most of us are not very mature. If Israel is called to be the light of the world and Jesus has come back to call Israel back to its true vocation, how can all this be dealt with? How can anger be diffused and prevented from spilling out into violence? What you just said. In this section on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus takes the commands of the law and shows how they provide a blueprint for a way of being fully genuinely, gloriously human. This new way, which Jesus had come to pioneer and make possible, goes deep down into the roots of personality and produces a different pattern of behavior altogether. Okay? So, this is what happened to me. This was 2004 to 2007, somewhere in there. We were stationed at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. And we went to church in Castle Rock. Have y'all ever been out there? Oh, I know you have, yeah. I don't remember, 25, 30 miles north of the base between Colorado Springs and Denver. Good church, great people. And one day after church, you know how you mill around in the auditorium, whatever you want to call it, talking with this, you see, at that time, I'm like early 40s, right? So I'm still a young guy. I got the dark hair, like John's hair. And I start talking to another guy, probably, I don't know, late 60s, 70s. And I don't know how we got onto it. I don't remember. But I guess my aunt and uncle had visited recently, and he talked to them and was impressed, and we got to talking about them. And I don't know, one thing led to another, and I told him that my aunt, way back in the day, was big in the Democratic Party of Texas. She used to speak, would go to Austin, and I don't expect you to know this. There was a woman named Barbara Jordan who was big into Texas politics, but they were friends, and she introduced her and all this kind of stuff before whatever they do. And he looked at me, and he said, "Oh, that's terrible." And I'm going in my head, what's this guy talking about? Christians can't beat Democrats. And he just goes on and starts disparaging. And all this stuff is going on in my head. I'm thinking, okay. And, you know, I'm getting angry because this is a woman that's always had my back. I love her. And she is top notch. And I know right now she's, you know, in heaven, wherever that is. And so I'm getting angry. And I'm looking at him, and these things are going through my head. And I don't know if I sinned, but I was definitely tempted, right? Because I'm thinking, okay, number one, you're putting yourself in the place of God, right? And you are making this evaluation, this stupid evaluation, that if someone doesn't vote like you, because you're definitely telling me who you vote for, which I don't care. Why are you even bringing it up? I don't know. Makes a difference to God. Can you believe that? And I'm thinking, this guy is just ignorant. This is all in my head. In fact, he's more than ignorant. He's just stupid. Okay? And more and more and more and more, and I start to grumble words in my head while I'm smiling that I shouldn't be saying in church. You know? And finally, you know, it's just like,
You shouldn't be saying anytime, right?
well, I know, but hey, I'm human. And, you know, the words you do when you, bam, hit your finger. Those were all in my head, all directed right at him. Because I just couldn't believe and see, I'll stop. You get the idea, right? So, and I couldn't believe that this happened in church. So have you had an experience like that? Where you get angry and you start having these thoughts about other people. Now, I didn't verbalize them. I kept smiling, so he probably didn't know. But what happened? I lost total respect for him. And I probably made things up in my head that weren't true. Like, I'm not going to ask him any questions. I'm not going to ask his advice on anything because I don't trust him. And I don't think he's a wise man. So in a split second, I made a total evaluation of his whole life, right? So did I sin or not? I don't know. That's the question. What do you think?
Right at the doorstep.
What?
You were at the doorstep.
Yeah. Do you think he did? I don't know. I've thought about this a lot over the years.
I just
think you used restraint.
Remember Batman? Da, 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 da. Pow! That's what I wanted to do.
So,
But that was stupid. I mean,
Greg, so you did not have any conversation, you just basically said goodbye, nice to meet you, goodbye.
I already know him, yeah, but just like, yeah, have a great day. I hope you choke on your food, that type of thing.
You did not say.
No, I didn't say that. That's what's going in my
You
head.
did not say.
No, I don't know. But,
Because-
Might have an opportunity to dig deeper.
but yeah, that's right. That's a good point, but I didn't want to dig any deeper with him.
Well, you
Just
think
wanna
you
like, all right, you're out of my life.
Form your opinion too quick, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, just remember, Jesus said, get the dust off of your sandals when you enter a city that doesn't accept you.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
He wasn't accepting you,
yeah.
so you brushed the dirt off your sandals. So the idea is, no, whether he did or not is another story. That's
Yeah.
a tougher one.
Well, he's my brother.
So Greg, let's think about that in light of the larger text we have here of Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus says, you know, we've got the law given by God, but I'm going to explain to you kind of the genesis of that and what it really means, because I am going to, he doesn't say this, but we know this, in the future, ask you to not live by law, but live by a changed life.
Mhm.
That's what this is, and I think it was pointed out when you said, well, some people believe this way and some people interpret it that way. The hands went up and said, we believe this is, I'll use my words, Jesus calling people at the beginning of his ministry to change their lives and their motives for things. So whether you sinned or he sinned is not the question. The question is, can you have a change? Can you allow Jesus to change your life so that this doesn't bother you?
Yeah.
This doesn't bother you. What do I need to be aware of? Oh, we're going to talk about that in a little bit here. But he died for us. Okay, he died for us to turn our lives over to him.
Yeah. And
That's where this, you know, if we get into a, yeah, you did, you didn't, and I understand all the finer points there, we're called to change our lives. And that may mean subordinating all of our immediate reactions and not, you know, not doing what you did. Okay, that was 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But today, what do? Take that. I don't even know who you are. Take that.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, I think this.
Yeah.
Probably not the right thing to do to the world,
Yeah.
but especially to a brother or sister. You know, those are not the kinds of things we need to be doing.
It's not easy.
No,
Everybody's got a button.
I don't know. I thank God I'm so lazy typing. I'm so slow to type.
Well, I don't even know how to do social media.
You
I
know-
don't have a Facebook account.
You know, I'm the guy that says, what are the standard responses? Okay, I click on that one. See you later, I click on that one. I'm too lazy to do all that, but there are people that aren't. And they're very good at it, and anyway.
Anything done at night needs to wait till morning before you hit send.
True.
Look, I like to think about it as my image is a baking cup. It's marked with a 1/3, 2/3, full, and the bottom third is the we like to call it the old law. It was old in Jesus' day, but it's
Right.
it's actually it's to make man well. It's to make man healthy. So you could think of it as medicine, but it's probably the fruits and vegetables that you need just to be healthy. Well, when Jesus comes, some people thought, oh, he's going to throw that cup away and start all over. But this wasn't that cup God made was fine. The things in there, but the Bible says the fault was in man, and the things given in that weren't sufficient for man. So Jesus is going to give us some some additional things that fill that cup up, that go further toward allowing man to be what he wasn't before. And the way he does it here is kind of, it's more of the language and things that they use in their writing, and I know, but I've read it said, because there's a study going on, they're studying the Sermon on the Mount for the whole year, and the authors have pointed out that the things that Jesus lists have gone from what we would consider more serious to less serious. Murder, you got I won't.
No, go ahead. It's gonna be brought up.
Murder would be the most serious. Calling your brother good for nothing would be pretty serious. Just saying you fool was serious, but notice that
It's inverted.
the courts that you go to are inverted.
Yeah.
For the most serious crime of murder, you probably go to the local court.
Local court, senior.
Then there's something that's just not quite as bad as that, but they're going to send him to the court for the whole
The Supreme Court.
the Supreme Court of Israel.
And then you end up in God's
And
court.
then if you just say,
You just say you're an idiot. Yeah.
You do the, and we've all done that. So it's just very,
Yeah.
it's a method.
We're gonna talk about that. Yeah.
I saw this on social media. Anita told me it was good, so I'll go ahead and say it. It says, Jesus didn't die for us so that we could continue treating people the way people treated him.
That's good.
And Greg, after, in regards to your story, afterwards, did you pray for him? And you don't have to.
No, I didn't, of course not.
Well, that's the key. When we meet people like that,
Amen.
we need to pray for them.
Yeah.
When we meet bad people, we need to pray for them. When we meet people that cause us injury, we need to pray for them, because that's what God commanded.
But that reminds me, and one extra thing, when we meet people like that, we need to pray for us.
That's
Yeah, too. Maybe us first, then them, but.
Okay. Matthew 5:21 through 26, we just read. Jesus opens up. Here's what the Torah says. Here's what I say. Gives 3 examples: anger and 2 insults. Okay. And then there's a short parable related to anger against a brother. And in the parable, you have wronged your brother. He has something legitimate against you. You call him an idiot, a fool. Okay? And it goes on to say, so don't go down to Jerusalem and come into God's presence and automatically think you're on good terms because you're here to offer a sacrifice to God. No, things aren't right in the kingdom of God with you. God doesn't care about your offering. Number 1, go to your brother and be reconciled. And it's so important to Jesus. He says, don't wait. Do it as soon as possible and do it quickly. Okay? You don't want to face the judge when you're guilty. That's what he's saying. Now, how is this connected to calling someone an idiot? Because that's in there. A fool, an idiot, a moron.
Is that just a cultural thing? Can we do
Well,
that
that's the
today?
question. Was it a big deal back then?
Just a cultural thing? I don't think that applies to us today.
I don't know. But who was it a big deal to? Yeah.
Well,
I'm just saying.
adultery, is that a cultural thing?
No.
Well, not in our house, I guess.
I'm saying, you know,
We're talking about adultery.
pick a country.
We're talking about fool, idiot.
Pick a country?
Pick a country
France.
where, you know, is there enough adultery? It just seems like cultural.
USA. But the point is, I don't know if it was a cultural thing back then, but it was a big deal to Jesus, right?
In an honor society, it's very important.
Yeah, right.
I was a member of that.
But here in Xenia, if John calls Dennis an idiot, John's not going to go before the court. It's not even a misdemeanor, right?
No.
Right?
Shame.
But it's a big deal to Jesus. That's the big picture, okay? So, but let's go back to the beginning here. Don't murder. Where have you heard that before?
And commandments.
Yeah, one of the big 10, right? Whoever, and Jesus says, whoever commits murder will be subject to judgment or will be guilty by the court. It depends on what version you're reading. And some of these are from scholars who are reading it right out of the Greek. And I think out of the Greek, it says, whoever commits murder will be guilty by the court. Okay? Now, Jesus wants us to see that there is something deeper, something of value that's underneath the command, do not commit murder, like you're talking about. And whatever's deeper, whatever's underneath it drives the command, and it's its heartbeat. For instance, if I've gone through my whole life without ever committing murder, does that mean that I've lived by the will of God? Well,
yes, to that extent.
but something deeper, right? Okay?
If you stop there, you miss the point.
Yeah, I think Jesus at that point would say, no, Greg. There's much more, right? Congratulations, he tells me. You've never committed murder. But everybody at work hates you. You belittle them. You devalue their contributions. You think you're better than everybody else. And you're just mean. In Jesus' mind, that human being who displays those characteristics is just as distorted as the murderer. Do you agree? Okay. So look at the first thing Jesus says. Everyone who is angry with his brother is guilty before the court. Okay? Guilty before the court in the kingdom of God. Some places it's called the kingdom of the skies. So in the kingdom reality, God's kingdom, everyone is just as bummed with your anger as they would be with murder. Just another way to say it. And we're all worried about being convicted of murder, right? It's not a good thing. But what if you knew that you would be just as accountable for an expression of anger? Do you take that just as seriously? I don't. You know? I would take murder very seriously. But the thing between me and that guy, yeah, whatever.
Some manuscripts insert without cause.
What?
Some manuscripts insert anger without cause.
Excellent.
Jesus got angry at the temple.
Yep.
He didn't sin. He had a reason to be angry. So if you put the without cause, in my thinking, that helps clear this up.
Watch this. So what kind of anger is Jesus getting at? Good. I mean, you're right. There's anger, and then there's anger. Right? And let's just look here. Raka. Okay? It's a Greek or Aramaic term. It means empty one. And if you look in some of these Bibles, it'll just say a term of contempt, an Aramaic term of contempt, or empty one. You fool is a Greek word, more. It's where we get the word moron. Okay? And then what Howard says. And we're going to go back over on this. So you've got anger, then you've got raka, and then you got you fool. Okay?
What about righteous anger?
That's what
That's what she was talking about.
Yeah, that's what she's talking about. And as things are, to us, okay, we're just kind of,
You gotta stand,
oh, you idiot. You know,
you gotta stand for something.
yeah.
But
But as you, I mean, you've got anger and then you got 2 insults, right? But, like Howard said, you've got the local court, the Sanhedrin, which is the Supreme Court of Jerusalem, Israel, I guess. And then you've got danger of the fire of hell, or the fires of Gehenna. I don't think you'd want to be there, would you? And that's just for the least intensive insult, right?
so, one of the problems I have with like righteous anger, or anger with cause, is where does it stop?
Mm-hmm.
The idea though is, yeah, if we get angry, that's fine. But what about people that believe in righteous wars or wars with cause? In other words, you get attacked so you can attack back. Is that right? I don't know. So the idea though is that what is a righteous cause for anger?
I think of that as if I see someone, an innocent, a child, being mistreated, abused, anyone being abused or any kind of form of true injustice, that should make me angry. And if that doesn't make me angry, then that on me.
Yeah.
And that anger should prompt me to do the right thing, whatever that right thing at that time would be.
Yeah, I know. It's just one of those things that, and I'm not saying that there isn't righteous or anger because I'm saying is that can also go to lead to sin.
Yeah. You can see that all of this in Christ's mind is important. It seems like he's trying to scramble our values. You know, what is up is down, what's down is up. And he's kind of clearing the deck for a whole new kind of conversation, right? Now, is it important to you that these insults seem specific to the value of a person? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you could be angry at someone and insult their behavior. Like, Arvilla, why did you do that? That was not a good decision. Which is different than saying you have no value, which is what you do when you call somebody a fool, a moron, an idiot, right? There's a guy named, well, I think he's passed, Christian philosopher named Dallas Willard. He wrote a book called The Divine Conspiracy. Anybody ever read that? I thought you might. And part of it is an exposition on the Sermon on the Mount. And he digs down on this word contempt. And he's talking about this relational posture, how we treat each other, where you sit in the seat of the evaluator regarding someone else. In other words, I have evaluated your life, who you are in this world, and I declare that you are good for nothing. Okay? You don't matter. So, let's get underneath this here. If you murder someone, whether you think about it or not, you're making a public declaration that that person does not matter. And their existence on this earth has no value. And the question is, can you do that to someone without killing them? You think that's possible?
Yes.
Absolutely. So what Jesus goes to anger, contemptuous anger, and it becomes clear not that you don't just devalue another person, but that you are happy to declare to the world that you're the judge of their value. You following me? And this is a really good example of Christ's wisdom teaching. You have to ponder, what does murder, what does contemptuous insults and anger, what do they all have in common? And it puts you in the evaluator's seat of the person and their worth. And to treat someone like that perpetually through their life, you were just talking about it, how belittling, how damaging it is. And it has devastating consequences, especially when you think of the little ones whose life is totally shaped by their parents. If they are belittled, insulted, and they're brought up that way, what's going to happen to them?
They become that way.
They become that way. So Jesus says, you haven't murdered anybody, that's good for you, congratulations. But what does it mean to fulfill the will of God that is revealed in the command, do not murder? You know? It's not just to not end somebody's life, it's about weaning yourself off of this habit that we have, that we think we have to evaluate somebody else's worth. Now this gets very personal very quickly, because you remember, if you don't, the rule, if you can't say it to their face, you probably shouldn't say it. But what happens when Diane steps out of the room and then we start talking about it? You know, that happens all the time, and we're all guilty of it, right? You know, we've become very flippant about someone's dignity.
Would it make you angry if somebody shot at you?
Yeah, that's happened.
How would you stop yourself?
Well, yeah, I know. I think that's different, though, than what we're talking about.
Well, part of what's going on here, though, is that the judgment of the murderer is in the court, not the individual.
Yeah.
Now, you might say, when we judge others of our kind, other people, we sort of override God's judgment. We take on. So this is. Notice, we're not only talking about, yes, I will become guilty if I call you a fool. But I'm taking on the role of the judge when I do call you a fool.
Yeah. You know, it's not just anger and murder. It's how I view other people, their value and their dignity. And now it makes sense why Jesus would say, love your God and love your neighbor as yourself. Because when you love someone, that is to value their existence as precious to God, and therefore they are precious to you. Because, go back to the very beginning, page 1, they're an image of God. So it's not just me, just not my family, just not this church, my nation, but everyone is in the image of God. Okay? Whether you're Catholic, Muslim, or a Democrat. So don't murder, don't devalue people in your actions toward them, or in your language about them, or to them, your attitude, your mindset. Okay? So that was me. You don't put yourself in the seat of the ultimate evaluator. Now, next week, we're going to talk about a few more things. And one of the cool things is just what exactly is going on with Gehenna. And why would he talk about that? And there's an old myth. I'm not going to call it a myth because I thought it was true. That's what one scholar called it. But it's not what I thought. I was like, wow.